Words matter. Read a book by one of my favorite authors, Mitch Albom, and you will be reminded that each and every word has purpose. He uses very few, but makes a big impact. Work with an editor, and they will help you leverage words with precision and meaning, ensuring that your book makes the biggest impact. Words connect people, friends. They break down walls and they build bridges. We know that. And guess what? Audio, it matters too. Listen to a poorly produced podcast and the mouth noises become like nails on a chalkboard. Or is that just me? I don't know. Video calls with poor internet connection, that breaks conversations and it hinders discussions that really need to be had. And audio matters in audiobooks if you want to transport a reader or a listener into your story. A well-written book increases someone's impression of the author just as a well-produced audiobook does. And on today's episode, I'm digging into the importance of quality audio in audiobooks with my friend Phil. So learn why and how to make quality audio in the audiobook experience. Ready to dive in? Let's do this. Hey, I'm Stephanie Feger, and I help authors make their author impact. Marketing can be overwhelming and immobilizing for many authors, but I'm determined to invite you to trade overwhelm for empowerment. I believe that empowered people empower people, and I'm obsessed with empowering you, the nonfiction author, with impactful marketing strategies and tactics to help you take your important message and share it with those who desperately need it, want it, and here's the kicker, will buy it. But marketing movement for movement's sake just won't work. That's where strategy comes in and what I'm determined to share with you. I'm the owner and chief strategist of the Empower PR Group and the author of multiple books myself, including a book that is perfect for authors called Make Your Author Impact. Sell more books, increase your reach, and achieve your why. I have been called to merge my love for reading books, writing books, and marketing books to help nonfiction authors with laser-focused strategies and tactics to write books that sell, promote books to those who need and want them most, and build meaningful businesses from empowering messages. Think of this podcast as your one-stop shop for marketing insights for an author who has been there, done that, and understands exactly where you are. Because guess what? I have, and I do. So get your pens ready because I'm ready to empower you. This is the Empowered Author Podcast. Phil, welcome back to the Empowered Author Podcast. And I'm excited this season that we're talking about audiobooks. And I don't think we can go any farther into the season without having an episode on the audio part of audiobook. The podcast is all about authors and their books, but the audio part of the audiobook is really important. And it is like your secret sauce. So welcome back, Phil.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I enjoy it.
I enjoy having you. I also really enjoy having people who have as much passion for what they do as I do for the written word and books and such. This morning, Phil, when I got up and was perusing social, I uncovered that 5 years ago today, my first book came out and I was having a celebration event.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's crazy.
Man.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Blink goes by super fast. What isn't fast?
You can gauge it by how much your kids have grown.
Yeah, I know. They're almost as tall as me.
Oh, I know.
That doesn't take much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, we don't want you, author friend out there, to take 5 years to get your audiobook produced and out there in the world. But a lot of things can happen
No doubt.
in 5 years. Yeah. And in a short time too. Phil and I have worked together on the audiobook production of my third book, Make Your Author Impact, which wasn't even a dream of mine 5 years ago when I wrote Color Today Pretty. But I'm so excited that it is out and I'm so excited about the audiobook. So without any further ado, Phil, before we pressed record on our chat today, we were talking about audio and your love for audio. And you can hear it when you talk about it. I could see it in your studio. I could see it and experience it and everything that you touch. But just remind people if they're popping in today and they are like, who's this Phil dude? He seems cool. Got the country accent like Stephanie does. But tell us a little bit more. Remind us about audio?
Well, I'm trying to hide it. I'm trying to hide the
Don't
country
hide it.
accent.
Embrace it. Embrace it.
Oh, I had to learn early on in my marriage, we don't do the wash.
No washing.
No. Mm-mm. My wife took that out of me. No wash. It's wash.
No wash. Did I tell you about the time? So Phil and I both live in the Louisville area, and y'all, Louisville is not a country way of saying it. It's how the real way of saying it. You garble marbles in the back of your throat when you say Louisville, Kentucky. But I'll never forget every time I giggle. My mom talks about going to Cincinnati, which is not very far from where we live here. And Phil, have I told you how my mom says Cincinnati?
No.
Cincinnati. I'm like, there's no A at the end, Mom.
Cincinnati? Wow.
Cincinnati. I'm like, no.
Man.
Oh my gosh. Well, Phil, tell us, how did you get in? Remind us. You've shared with me before, but remind us. How did you fall into the audio world?
Just being a musician for many years and starting to be interested in recording, not being able to find somebody to do recording for me that I was pleased. So I started thinking I could do it as good or better myself, and just started recording and buying equipment, and it never ends. The buying equipment just goes on and on.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But your background, like you had a corporate job too, right? Like you worked in a corporate type world, and were you dabbling in this on the side during that time?
Constantly, yes. I worked in plastic injection molding for 23 years, and I was a process engineer, and wrote all the training information for the department that I worked in. And so, I was a manager at one point, and I did about everything you can do in that world. And when that came to an end, I
checked it off, took the name, took the title, got it.
I was doing this anyway, and then I happened to have a good friend of mine that plays. He actually plays in a band called Rain, a tribute to the Beatles. Once he got that gig, it took a tremendous amount of his time, and he had a client that he worked with constantly, and the timing worked out perfect. Whenever my career in plastic ended, and this friend of mine says, "Hey, I have this client I literally don't have time for, and I'm going to be on the road for so much time. Can you take over this client?" Sure. And man, that was a really good jumping off point. I would work, this guy would work, 9, 12, 15 hours a week, just that one client. And that kind of started the whole thing, kind of built from there.
It's cool how career shifts can kick us into doing stuff we were doing on the side and that we loved. I mean, it just shared that 5 years ago in 2018, my first book came out. I mean, Phil, I think I probably shared some of this with you, but that book was marinating for years while I was working in corporate America until my career in my previous corporate world, moving up the leadership chain and everything between pivoted. And now, beautiful things, right? It's like doing what we were always meant to do, but it took some other areas to get us either the confidence or the skill set or the knowledge or the capacity or the space or whatever to make it happen. And so that's really awesome. I think that's cool. And it's cool when people take a chance with us. I remember right when my book came out, I was trying to get some speaking opportunities and collaboration opportunities. And I remember looking at my husband one day saying, well, I just need one person to give me a chance. One person lets me share this story. One publisher will listen to this message. If one reader will pick it up, then I know great things can come from it. Mm-hmm. And so actually, when I think about marketing, I always tell people, don't focus on trying to reach the many. I want you to reach the many, but as you're doing and reaching the many, I want you to focus on the one, because all you need is one spark, one person to trust you, for you to learn and to grow. And, and then look at you got a whole studio in your basement, which, let's just be real. It's not just it's not any basement studio, man. This is legit cool with a padded isolation room.
Yeah.
Is that the doghouse, Phil? Is that where you go if you get in trouble? Go to the padded room in the basement.
Oh, yeah, it could be. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, it's very quiet in there. So, if you want to just get away and have total silence. That's the place to go.
And
the whole house kind of is,
Is it? Well, I've only been to part of your house. I've not been to the other part, but it does seem very serene, very quiet.
Oh yeah, it's very overbuilt. The house was built by the builder. He built it for himself to live here while he built the whole subdivision. So this was the first house built, and he happened to be a stone mason. And I think almost everything out of the, over in Bedford, Indiana, there's a rock quarry, and all the stone came out of that rock quarry. I think this guy single-handedly emptied that rock quarry into this house because everything is stone, and it's so thick, and it's very overbuilt. And
it's beautiful.
Yeah, so he lived here for like 4 years while he was building the whole subdivision. So, when a builder builds for himself, he does crazy, stupid overkill, construction.
Yeah, it's not builder grade. It's like up
no way. Yeah. It's overkill.
Which is probably good for you because sound was important, and you need to make sure that you can control that. And the fact that there is a room in your house that you can make completely silent and soundproof.
Yes.
And your basement has that opportunity too. It's almost like this house, even though it was built for him, it was built for you, for this dream, for one day you to do what you get to do now, which is fall in love with audio, with the spoken word or sung word or music or the things that we hear. And that creates a massive experience. We were talking, you and I recently, about how what's a movie without the music?
Right.
It's pretty boring.
Yeah.
Right? Like, pretty boring. I was watching something on Netflix this morning while I was getting ready. My husband was in the shower, and he goes, "Oh no, something big's coming." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Did you hear the music?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." The ominous music in the back,
Yeah.
The murderer was on the loose. Oh, I love it.
Other big benefit of this house, I mean, one of the reasons that we bought it is there's an addition added onto the house that is a amazing drum live room, and sometimes I record vocals up there. Just a big kind of ambient space, and the combination of that and the whole basement, it works very well.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool.
Lots of square footage.
And hopefully we've inspired some people to get on a plane if they're not from the area and come over and visit us, because it is really amazing space.
Oh yeah.
It's not like a little hole in the wall audio studio that you go in. Like, it's an experience, but audio is an experience. And when we're thinking about audio books, our listeners and readers want that experience. They don't want to create for themselves, envisioning what you sound like or what have you. They want to hear it from you. They want that inflection, and audio offers it. So Phil, I thought today we could talk about the audio experience and why it is so important in audiobook success. And I'm curious from your perspective, how audio creates like an emotional connection to anything. Like, I know music does, but I'm just, from your perspective, what does sound, music, audible words, the little I'm making this thing with my finger on the screen of music or of audio on a sound bar. Like, how does that create an experience?
Those are transients.
I'm learning. I'm learning. How do you think that, or why do you think that is so important, and how it creates an emotional connection?
Oh, it just sets the feel of whatever it's underneath. I mean, if you start it with music, you kind of get a feel for what's coming, just like you said, what you saw on Netflix. And setting a scene or setting the feel, I mean, the music is entirely responsible for that, I think. If there's nothing, and then suddenly there's a story being told, it's just not the same. It's very sterile. It adds more emotion. It adds more feel. It's very beneficial.
I think that it also, when we think about, and let's talk about the music element a little bit. I was doing some research for a speaking engagement that I did a couple months ago on, I don't know if I told you about this. It was like the 5 gifts that we are given to live in the present. And it is our 5 senses. Those are our gifts God gave us. And imagine, Phil, when you stump your toe. I don't know about you, but I can't really fret and worry about the past or stress out about the future. Like, I just am trying to hold back the expletives that want to come out of my mouth because of that. Right.
Certainly.
And so when we think of when our senses are heightened, you walk into Thanksgiving dinner and with your family and you smell I don't even eat meat, and I smell the turkey and dressing, and it gives me a feeling. When I smell like a Christmas candle, it gets me excited and happy. Sunscreen, like I open up like a tropic, what is it? Not a Hawaiian tropic suntan lotion and the coconuts.
Yep.
It transports us, and sound does that too. And I think it from music, even from vocals, from the words we choose, all of that creates an experience. And I think from the audiobook standpoint, not only does it like transport the listener and reader into your story, but I also think it creates an element of professionalism and quality, right? So like, you want to be seen as lower. Someone has a low confidence in you. Produce a really poor audiobook, then very quickly,
right,
they might not listen to it. Like, do you agree?
Sure, yeah. And I try to create that. That I think constantly about the studio space and what kind of feel the studio space gives you. And you're trying to create a positive vibe. And, this whole house has got that 60s kind of vibe. And I try not to change that too much. I try to keep it in that kind of look and, with a little bit of modern here and there. But I'm constantly trying to think about what's going to make everything more pleasant and just give people a vibe when they come in.
Well, because whether they want it or not, right?
Creatively.
Whether we, as we think about just every part of our life is built on moments and experiences, and those create and shape how we see the world. And so when we think about bringing our book to life in the audiobook format way, we want our readers to hear the book and experience it in the lens at which we want them to. It's not like a text message where we hope that what we say got across. Like, we're given the opportunity to ensure that we're putting the inflection in the right place. We are enforcing and reinforcing the right messages. We are laughing when something's funny. And we're giving them these elements that you don't get when you read by yourself. And that that's a gift. But it also can deepen what somebody sees you, author, like, or it wants to engage with you, author. And I can imagine, Phil, from your perspective too, some of that comes in pace and tone as well from the narration, right? Like, that can also set the mood.
Sure. Some readers, depending on the content, read a little slower with a little more relaxed tone. Other parts need to be more upbeat, maybe a little faster. Most places you listen to an audiobook, you can speed it up, but a lot of times you can't necessarily slow it down. So a little slower pace is overall a little better down. Because if it's bothering somebody that's too slow, they can always speed it up. They can go to 1.2 or 1.5 or times 2, and they can get it in. But I remember you having some areas of your book that you were just blazing fast. So I can't imagine, depending on the level of excitement and what you're talking about, it makes you talk faster, and your level of caffeine at the moment. There's lots of variables there. But,
you never know.
I could see somebody on your book speeding it up in places, and then other places going, whoa, wait a minute, slow it way down. Whoa. She's just flat out.
I love it. Well, and I would say if you were going to pick one or the other, are you going to, to go fast or slower? I would probably, I don't know, Phil, I'd like your thought on it, but I would say, a slower pace is probably the smarter route so that people can let it sink in, because you can make it faster.
Relaxed, just having a relaxed feel, because a lot of people are doing it as a way to relax. And, if it's too fast or too intense, it's not going to be good. It's not serving the purpose that a lot of people are using to listen to an audiobook.
No, exactly. And I would also say too, every time before we went to record, even before I do these podcasts, right? I always, you see it, Phil, because we're on video while we're recording, but I always smile before anything comes out of my mouth. And I've learned that how we speak
Sure.
audibly is as much connected to not only the words we say, but how the rest of our body's prepared for it. So, if I'm frustrated and mad at like something that somebody did, and I need to read a part of my audiobook, and I
Sure.
have to I have to
Sure.
find a way to smile through it until I talk myself into it, because you can hear a smile. You can hear it. At least I can. Can you,
Certainly.
Phil?
Certainly. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And there were even a couple times in the book process where I remember laughing, like kind of giggling through something. I
Hmm.
think that's also nice. I mean, but it,
Yeah.
it, it obviously goes back to the type
Yeah.
of book you're reading. Talk to me about some of the other books that you've done. You've done some others that are more memoir. You've done some storytelling books. You've done some biblically based books. You've done leadership books. What are some audio insights in that journey that you've uncovered that makes the listener's experience the best?
Well, the authors that are good readers, they can definitely relay their story probably better than anybody else could. If you took a voice actor and tried to get them to relay the same story, it wouldn't come out the same. The inflection wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be as personable. So, yeah, I mean, there's some authors that are excellent at relaying that, and they're reading, they read with a flow, they have a smooth way of doing it, and it really comes out in what they're doing. Others not quite so much, but it especially people that haven't done it before, people that have never done podcasts. If it's a new thing, and for a lot of the authors, doing their own audiobook it's the first time they've ever done it. I've had one author record the entire first chapter, and I sent it to her, and she listened to it and said, "No, I have to redo that again." That's And I remember while we were doing it, I was giving her some thoughts. Watch this, think about this. And with through the whole experience, she has all that in her mind, and then she listens back and she's going, "Oh man, I could do that so much better." And she learned a lot doing that one chapter. And after she went back and redid that one chapter, oh man, the rest of the whole book went so smooth. I mean, it is a learning experience, definitely.
That's insightful, and I just took a note. I think that to just reinforce that, if you are not comfortable and behind a mic and a headset and hearing yourself, either prepare by practicing on your phone, you're reading your book, before you go in, or even do what that one author did, Phil, right? And say, hey, can I record a chapter or two, whatever, before you get too deep, so that you can pick up on those nuances. But I think that that's smart in
Yes.
preparation to make sure you have the strongest audio you want. I don't think you want to come across like you're reading. I think you almost want to pull out the inner actor in you, right? Like, you don't want it to feel like you're reading. Like I was telling you about how my husband reads. Love Corey. Love him intimately. He's a wonderful man. But when he reads, every sentence is the same.
Yeah.
Stephanie went to work today. Stephanie ate cake. Stephanie, whatever. You want it to have some inflection, and you want it to feel like they're having a conversation with you. I think, Phil, no matter what type of book you're reading, you want them to feel like you're having a conversation, and you're not reading to them like you would be reading to a child.
Sure. I mean, it's awkward if it's obvious that somebody's reading. You want it to feel like they're just talking to you and they're just telling you their story, and it makes people uncomfortable. I mean, that's some of the things that people will bail on an audiobook. They read, or they listen for 15 minutes and go, "Nope, this is weird." Like if it's really awkward, it makes people uncomfortable while they're trying to read it. But if it's just got a nice flow, relaxed flow, and it sounds like somebody's telling their story, then people take to it a lot better, I think.
Yeah, so if you find after you're practicing, and as the author, you are the one that wants to bail on the journey because it's overwhelming, not the reader, I guess my tip would be go back to your why behind it. I always tell authors, Phil, that if you've gone through the trouble of writing a book to share a message, which is not the easiest way to share a message in this world, okay, but you've picked a hard way to do it, you need to remind yourself that you obviously have something the world needs to hear. And if you don't tell them about it, it is selfish.
Yeah.
selfish. It's like I'm your grandma saying it's selfish.
Right.
Don't be selfish and hold back something that could change somebody. And so that might mean you have to get over the uncomfortability of hearing your own voice and learning, things about your voice if you're going to be the narrator. Phil, what are some ways that authors or musicians or whomever comes into your studio, I know previously you made some recommendations. I just want to build on those for a hot minute to make sure that their voice is prepared. What are some tips? I know we talked about like drinking lukewarm water, not hot, not cold. That gets good, strong voice.
Well, it's different for everybody, I think. Some people's voice, they do better with, hydrating to a degree, but not overhydrating. But then also some people like a Ricola, or they like a peppermint, or they like, all of that stuff changes the tone of your voice. Yeah. And depending on, how we previously talked about the amount of sinus drainage and allergens, and, I can pretty much tell by the way my voice is sounding and by the way I'm feeling how high the pollen count is for the day. We have an app on our phone that'll tell you in the area, and sometimes I'm going, wow, I can really feel it and I can hear it in my voice, and I look and go, oh, that explains it. So there's so many. You really do have to find what keeps your own voice clear, and it is different for everybody. Yeah. Some people don't need it, some people do, and I think overhydrating can bring on other problems, but for the most part, a level of hydration is good, but definitely not ice cold water. Sometimes hot tea. I've got some throat coat tea that works great for some voices and some singers, and I always keep that kind of stuff around. Some people like honey in their throat coat tea. Some people like, it's really different for everybody. You just have to kind of figure out what works well for your own voice.
When I did theater training as a kid, we would do like theater, like vocal exercises, like red leather, yellow leather, red leather. Say that like back forth. What that did for me, and I didn't do this in preparation for our audiobook, but I understood the gist of it, is when you say red leather, like you're pulling your words to the tip of your mouth. Like it's very focused in the front. It's not garbly in the back, which is something as a Southerner is really easy to fall into, is living and talking deeper in the back of your throat. And so even identifying some phrases that can help you make sure that you're articulating in a different way that is a bit more crisp and less garbly could be good. The thought of like honey to me would be awful because that would be heavy in the back of my throat, right? Like, so I wanted to have, I didn't want any of that, but I can see how other people would need it. So I think that's good insights. And then you also said that somebody made a recommendation that like even an L or any of the words that might try to go to the top of your mouth, or the roof of your mouth, like just be cognizant of that. And so it's this dance of knowing you have to read, but also being really acutely aware of how you're saying the words.
Yeah, don't put too much of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, because when you pull it off, it's going to make a noise. It makes a pop noise. And when you get a microphone all up in your business,
we don't like those.
I do try to angle the microphone so it gets less of that. So you're kind of talking across the microphone. More point the microphone at your chest, so you're talking across it. That will reduce those sounds, but there's other things you can do. And there's techniques to everything, and learning how to do it well is it's not something everybody can do. I'm not the person for it.
Well, but it's your zone of genius in understanding how the audio is. So like the technique, you need to figure out, author. But on the other side, when you have a strong producer like Phil on your team, he knows, all right, I can't control what can come out of your mouth, but I can control how the equipment is capturing it to ensure we get the best quality. Yeah. So what are some of the quality standards that you look for or that you're capturing? I know we talked about like the less amount of clicks. If you don't know what that is, it's the mouth movements. Like you can hear in the back of your throat, or even sometimes we do pops with our mouth, like a little thing. And I might not edit that out of this podcast, Phil, so they can hear a little pop.
Oh, yeah. Got to keep it in.
Got to keep it in.
excess saliva is a big thing. You don't want to have your mouth too dry, obviously, because then it makes more noise. But
Sure.
That's one of the things of being overhydrated. If you're fighting to control the amount of saliva in your mouth, oh, that sounds awful. That's just
Yep.
ooh,
Yep.
yeah, that's something that'll make somebody bail on an audiobook right there.
There's a podcast I listen to, and I'm not going to say anything about it because I know nobody means to do it. They sometimes have two people come on. One of them has been podcasting for a long time. The other is newer to the space. And I don't mind when they're talking together, but when it's only the other person, I can literally hear the tongue hit the back of the teeth and the saliva roll around and feel it like I can't even, I turn it off. I would never do this because I'm a Southern girl. And so I'll just say, bless her heart, right? But at the end of the day, we have to be aware of that.
Sure.
However people are consuming info. And if it's audibly, we want to ensure that they aren't hearing those things, right? You're still able to get the words and the message out. So audio really, really, really matters. And I guess the moral of the story, Phil, is if everything we just shared makes your head spin, author friend, maybe you should have a narrator on your book.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a gut reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I have authors that I've done books that did their own book that told me, oh man, if you have anybody that wants their book read, I'm like, they love it.
I love the whole experience, Phil, but there's no way I will do an audiobook for somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was fun, and I will do it again. It's a lot of work, and there are people who do this for a living. So don't fret if you go, oh my gosh, I want an audiobook. I'm concerned about my garbling in the back of my throat. I might not be the right person. You don't have to be. Even if you wrote the book, you don't have to be the one to audio it. And you might not supposed to. You might not supposed to be. It might be way better if you have a professional do it.
Yes. Especially if the book is kind of like an instructional, like almost like a training. It wouldn't be as important that the author tells their story in their own voice. That might be a little easier for the author to accept, letting somebody else read it for them. But
right. And rest assured, too, that we recommend at the beginning of the book, when you open it up, as opening credits is what they call it in the industry, that you make it really clear who is reading the book. So for my book, it says read by the author. But if that is not the author, you will say narrated by Stephanie Feger. But the point is they will know and they go, okay, great. So I actually think as authors, we feel like, well, we have to do it. But I don't know that it is industry standard in all books overall that the author reads it. In fact, if you look in fiction, most of the time it is not authors who are reading it. Nonfiction is a different beast, and you do see more authors reading their books, but it doesn't have to be. And that is okay because it is articulated in the beginning. And I would just, always keep our eyes set on the people we are wanting to reach, how we can reach them, how we can make an impact in their world. And if that means hearing you laugh at things and add inflection where it needs to be and your voice is going to push the story farther, then go for it. If it is, you need an audiobook, but maybe you aren't the right fit, rest assured there are people who do this for a living and are fantastic at it. And you can go that route too.
Yeah. If we could just get Morgan Freeman to read books for us, that'd be amazing. What a voice that is,
Yeah, what a gift.
Yeah.
He has an amazing voice.
Yeah.
Everybody would listen. You just want to sit down. Or the guy that on the BBC movies or TV shows where you're out in nature, you get that beautiful,
he's got that accent.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yep.
I love that.
Me too. There's something about a British accent.
There is, and it's wonderful, and it's so lovely on the ears while I'm listening to it in an audiobook. But yeah, so rest assured, we've got you covered, and there are people out there that do this. Phil, any last, what would be your one audio piece of advice for authors to leave them with for the audiobook?
Quality. Quality. Make it the best possible quality that's going to be a pleasant sound that people are going to want to listen to for a lot of hours. How many hours is in your book? What are we, 260 something pages? How many hours did that end up being? You have to make it where people can listen to it for the long haul.
I don't even know.
It's Phil. A lot.
Yeah. You're talking 8-10 hours,
Easy.
People. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot. It's a lot of hours. And the quality is two-part in my opinion. It is you bringing your A game, if you're narrating it, to the table. Meaning, what are you doing to make sure that you are providing the best quality on your end? And it is also partnering with a production team, a producer, an audio engineer, someone amazing like Phil and his team to make sure that the audio that is captured is crisp. When those two come together, magic happens,
Yes.
fireworks go off, and listeners will stay. They will
Yeah, they'll
stay.
listen to the whole thing.
And what I'm learning, Phil, in the audiobook space.
Yeah.
They will. And you want that because in Audible, you get paid for how long they listen.
Oh, really? I actually didn't know that.
So you want that. Yes.
Wow. So if somebody bails on a book,
yes. I'm
that
learning.
reflects how much the author makes, right?
That's my understanding. I'm learning. Yes, as this
book
comes out. Yes. So it's a different experience. You're not asking them to pay $20 for the book. You want them to stick around. You want them to hear so quality is game changing.
Yeah. And some nice little pieces of music at the beginning, like we did with yours, is, man, all that stuff just dresses it up, you know.
It does. It elevates it. It elevates it. Well, I am grateful that you made sure that that I brought my A game to the audiobook game world, and I know that you can do that have done that, and will do that for others. So thanks for being on today and for telling us about audio, getting us a little sneak peek behind it, and looking forward to our next episode. Always.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much.
As authors, we know the power of our written word, and we invest in prioritizing quality written content. We invest in developmental editing, copy editing, proofing, and all that fun jazz. We know quality books sell, and we want a book that sells, right? Well, the same is true for audiobooks. The quality of your audio will help you sell more books and keep people reading and listening to your message. If we can help you in bringing your audiobook to life, Phil and I would love that. Visit empowerprgroup.com/connect and let's chat. Author friend, thank you for listening today and for saying yes to becoming empowered. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take time to rate and review it. It means the world to me. And as you know, I'm a believer that empowered people empower people. I've empowered you. Now it's your turn. Go out there and empower others.